Let's talk about something you did recently, which was a 10-day meditation retreat, right?
Mhm.
Can you talk us about how did that go and what impact it had on you?
Well, so the thing is, say you want to learn how to juggle a ball. If you need to go to school, you need to do this, you need to do that, and then you spend 10 minutes every day juggling a ball, it's going to take a while until you see significant progress. Usually, you see good progress when you're out on the field at least 1 hour, 2 hours a day, right? And it's easy. It's easy. You get addicted to, oh, I need to kick the ball 10 times, and I can only, each time I'm doing three. Oh, I got seven. I'm so close to 10. And then you see, you can just continue, continue, continue. And by sort of doing it that often and those periods of times, you catch fire. Now imagine if you kick this ball for 10 hours every day for 10 days without talking to anyone, without doing anything else. Well, you're gonna be eligible for a Brazilian citizenship very soon. Maybe not in 10 days. Maybe you need a little bit more. It depends on your sort of starting point, right? So, what I'm trying to say is the biggest thing for me is, of course, you have the effects you get from meditating 10 minutes a day, right? Then you have the effects of meditating 10 hours a day. Or actually, before we get to that step, you have the effects of meditating 1 hour a day. Way more than 10 minutes, because it's more difficult to do a 60-minute sit. Then you have the effects of sitting for 1 hour without moving. Well, that's more difficult because now you have to deal with pain, and so you have to adjust your mind to that. You need more equanimity. And so then, if you can sit comfortably being still, that's going to give you more progress. Well, maybe then now that's easy. Well, how about you do 2 hours, etc.? When you do 10 hours every day, you catch fire very quickly. And so it is only in retreat settings where you can really access deep states, you could say. Not that that's the goal, but certainly you need to build up some form of concentration to be able to see the nature of reality. And when I say see the nature of reality, usually we react to something, right? React to it, and we didn't really see the reaction. We only saw the reaction. We didn't see what happened before that. But you can catch if you catch the reaction at its source, you're gonna see that it comes from certain mental emotional patterns that you have. But you were unconscious to it because just like when I'm doing this interview, I'm not feeling my feet as much. When you're reacting, you're only feeling the reaction and not everything else that's irrelevant to what you find important, which is dictated by the mental emotional patterns. Now, where am I going with this? Yes, so you're developing your mind to be able to see all that. And that's what happened. Just like if you do something for 10 hours every day, you're going to get good at it very quickly. It's the same thing here. Now, with juggling a ball, your touch is going to get really well, or really good, I should say. You're going to have a really good touch very quickly, or at least you'll improve it in a very short amount of time. Meditation is just like any other skill. You become a better meditator. You meditate a lot, you become a better meditator. But now, what does that do? What are you really doing? Well, you're sort of zooming in on consciousness itself. Like, you can put your hand in front of you and you look at that and you go, "What is that? What is this? Like I'm interpreting this as my hand, but what really is this? Why the hell is anything arising in the first place?" So you're zooming in on that and you're seeing how you're filtering everything through your mind, right? So with meditation, you're developing the skill of seeing reality as it is. And if you do that, that allows you to see how you're creating suffering in your life or how you're creating anything really, because you're creating all of this. How do I know that? Well, if there's a tree over there, if I was a baby and I didn't know what the tree was and I had absolutely no experience in life, I would have no idea what that was. I had to learn what that is, and now I'm creating it automatically just by looking at it. Right? So, by understanding what it is that you're creating, with everything that's going on inside of you, all your mental emotional patterns, not only can you dissolve them, or dissolving is the sort of that's downstream. Upstream, seeing it. You have to see it first to dissolve it. So then by becoming a better meditator, your laser, your consciousness becomes really strong, and so you can start to dissolve everything, and that brings you freedom. So Just like if you say do cold exposure, that's going to have amazing effects on your mitochondria, whether you want it to have the good effects on the mitochondria or not. So you just want to do, cold exposure, right? You want to do cold exposure because you want to be an ice swimmer. You want to compete in swimming in cold bodies of water. That's a sport. If you become good at that, you'll automatically get the health benefits. If you become good at meditation, you automatically gain freedom. So what I felt was that I was obviously a lot more peaceful. I was very content with life. I think anything that came up, any sort of negative situation, positive situation, I was able to enjoy it or be with it more, etc. And overall, if you wanna, go get into the technical consciousness stuff, usually when I'd meditate, I'd feel like, when you're going around the place, you feel like life is happening from here. Why? Because you have the most amount of sensors over here, especially with your eyes. You feel like you are up here somewhere. Whenever I'd meditate in the past, after getting out of the meditation, I'd feel, oh, yes, I'm not in my head. I'm more everywhere in my body, everywhere else. Now I got that, but way stronger at the retreat. I also got the deepest states of concentration that I had ever entered up until that point. They're called the jhanas, Jhanas. If anyone's interested in looking that up, but those are real. Anyone can access those, unless you seriously have some kind of mental impairment that allows you to not concentrate. Just by nature of the way your brain works, it not working. That's sort of what I would say. That's sort of what I would say. And would I recommend it? Absolutely. It's free. And see, there's probably one in Portugal. There's definitely one in Spain. There are 4 in France, I know. There's one in Sweden. There's one in Latvia. There are several ones in the US. Probably a few ones in Canada. There are, I think, 2 or 3 in Mexico. There's gonna be one in El Salvador. There's no one in Costa Rica. There's 2 in Argentina. There's 2 in Colombia, 1 in Colombia. And in Asia, there are tons and tons and tons. 3 in the UK, I believe, as well. And again, free 10-day courses. So all you need to do, you just need transportation, whether that's a train, whether that's your car, whatever, usually a plane ride. Then you arrive there and bam. The website is dhamma.org, dhamma.org. Okay? So you go in there and you can find the worldwide directory and you can apply to any course. Why am I saying all this? Because I want people to do this. Because it turns fathers who react to their children into better fathers. It turns mothers who react to their children and their husband to better mothers. It turns a son into a better son. It turns a daughter into a better daughter. It turns any human being into a better human being. Why? Because when you gain freedom in your own life, you will bring freedom to others.
And the freedom starts always up here.
Mm-hmm. Many people think,
yeah.
Many people think that suffering, and this is something you notice, this is another experience I can tell you about. Many people think that suffering is external, that people suffer because of external circumstances. If you really pursue this path, at some point, you'll realize experientially, not just intellectually, experientially, that all suffering is created in the mind. 100%. Now you might say, no. Well, I mean, if you're put in prison, maybe 80% is created by your mind, but 20% is clearly circumstances. No, at some point you'll realize that 100% is created just through your mind, just by the nature of how the mind works. I can tell you, in the strong determination sits, which is where so in the course, you're meditating 10 hours a day, but you only have 3 sessions in the hall for the most part. And the sessions in the hall where the teacher is present and everyone is present in the hall, and you're not working individually, you're working together, so sitting and meditating there for an hour, they ring the bell and everything. Those sessions after day 4 become strong determination sits, where you're not allowed to change your posture. You don't move your arms or your legs. You can sort of straighten out your back if you find yourself slouching, but other than that, you can't sort of turn your head, you can't open your eyes. So what happens is, obviously, if anyone's meditated, they know, more than 10 minutes. these back muscles, especially in the upper back, around the spine, the lower traps, they start to spasm. Same thing with maybe the legs or the lower back. For me, it's my upper back, but some people it's their lower back, it's their legs. And obviously, you're dealing with all this pain, and you're going, "What am I doing? Like, why? Like, meditation is supposed to be this peaceful thing, right? I'm supposed to feel so great, and all I'm doing here, day after day, is just feeling all this pain. Now, I didn't do that because I know the goal of what the pain is. But someone who's new to this, or someone who's listening to this and has never done this before, may think that. And so, the point here is that you're supposed to observe bodily sensations with equanimity. Equanimity is not craving for a sensation, not wanting a sensation. When you're hungry, you're not sort of suffering because you're not eating a fat, juicy steak. You're fine. You can wait. You're not suffering. When you eat the steak, you eat the steak, but you weren't craving it, right? And you're not averse. You're not averse to the sensations. You're not saying, I want this to end. I will be happy once this ends. No, you will not be happy once it ends, you realize. And that's something I realized. Whenever there was pain, I realized suffering does not end once this pain ends. It will all be the same regardless. And it really is that way. Suffering doesn't end just because that circumstance changes. It changes. The suffering ends when you've done a deep surgical operation in the brain through practice to train the mind not to crave and be averse to stuff. So the pain would arise, and I mean, I never knew I had this much equanimity, because I've been in these situations in the past by myself, and it's been hard to meditate. But I really went into the pain in the back. I could catch it as it would arise, and there was no suffering. I could feel it, but in my mind, I didn't create any suffering around it. Just because I saw it so clearly, and I separated any emotional reaction. I could very clearly see any emotional reaction and the pain as separate. And as long as I separated them, there was no suffering. So the way Shinzen Young describes it is when both the emotion, like, oh, I want this to end, and the pain are tangled together because you're not really observing correctly. It's like taking 20 times 20, and then you get 400. And so your suffering is 400 points. If you untangle them, suddenly you have 20 plus 20, and that's just 40. 10 times less suffering. You just feel the pain, and there's no reaction to it. It's like, imagine you saying, I can live with this pain for the rest of my life, and I have no issues with it. You're certainly just sending love to it. It's just an experience that's occurring. That's the way you're sitting. And then you'll realize if you do that, you're concentrated, then the pain comes, and then your concentration goes all over the place. If you get past the hurdle of the pain, then you go even deeper into concentration. And at some point, the pain even disappears. That's something I can tell you about suffering.
I think just like in any area of life, whether it's physical, spiritual, financial, or social, in any area, there's always levels to it. And in this spiritual area, in this field, you have taught me, you recommended inside your community the book Power of Now. Once I read that book, I realized there was another layer, which is pretty much that, the psychological, the time that's in our mind isn't necessarily real. And once I was able to snap out of it and just be in the present, that suffering of I'm not in this place in my life, I want to be here, I want to achieve this, I'm not there, or the suffering of feeling like my past, I've messed up so much, I'm addicted to this or whatever. Once I was just able to snap into the present, all of that disappeared. I was able to do the right actions and actually not self-sabotage myself. That's something I realized. It was the next level. And in this retreat, that you did the 10-day meditation, you weren't about to speak, right?
Correct?
How did you feel about that?
Wonderful. I'll tell you a funny story. So, I have a friend who I did this with, who's from Brazil. I'm from Sweden. And if you know anything about those two cultures, Brazilians are very open and communicative. Swedes are very closed. And so, obviously, we're friends, right? We know each other. Who do you think what? Because you're not supposed to have eye contact and sort of do things with your face and smile at people. You're not supposed to do that because you're trying to keep everybody, concentrated on their mission, which is becoming more conscious, working diligently, trying to gain more understanding of themselves and reality. Now he'd make eye contact with me and he'd smile and he'd do all that stuff, right? Me, I never did that. I was completely fine. Then after, like the 10th day, you get to speak after like 10 a.m., something like that. Because obviously they want, it's like how do I say? It's like if you just go from the retreat out to the world, it's going to be a little bit of a shock. So they try to use the 10th day as a shock absorber. Some people described me as, they said, you looked like you weren't struggling at all. Like you looked so stoic. Like I saw no facial expression on you. I said, yeah, I mean, that's sort of the way it was for me. Then when we spoke again, I actually felt I didn't like it. I wanted to continue being silent. It was quite nice being silent, to be honest with you. So that's how it went. I mean, it was great. There's something called, this is a very esoteric health practice that not many people know about. Speech fasting. So there's food fasting, right? There's also speech fasting. If you don't speak, you conserve a lot of energy. Unfortunately, with my chosen profession, I don't get to do that much. But if I could, definitely staying silent is my preference because you just save so much energy and your mind becomes sharper. It's like whenever I'm in a social situation, I feel maybe this is sort of the definition of introversion. But I do feel drained. I feel like I was handling the social situation. I was spending energy and trying to handle the social situation by saying the right things. Whether I'm conscious of that or not, I'm always micromanaging myself. Everyone is really, socially speaking, to some extent. Then suddenly, when I part with the people or the person, I start to hear the birds. I start to see the trees. I start to feel my breath. I go, oh, why wasn't I like that before? So I guess I got to be in that state more. And in general, I mean, it's going to depend on the person. I think it's harder for a Brazilian than a Swede, and especially, I mean, not all Swedes are like me, but I'm someone who has no issues being alone, right? And so for me, it was completely fine. For others, it may have been difficult, but um, I find
So,
I don't know. I think with my dopamine levels, as a kid I laughed a lot. In general, I smile and laugh a lot. So I think even if I'm left alone, I'll find a way to amuse myself.
so do you find yourself being more introverted or extroverted?
Oh well, I mean, I guess it depends. Like there are different factors there. It's like if you ask me, do you prefer being in a cooler climate or a warmer climate? I'll tell you, well, there are different things there. Like, what's the air quality like? Like, what's the water quality like? What are the taxes like? It depends on several things. So what I'll tell you is, for me, it's not just about the whether I like being around people or I like being alone. For me, it's really about who am I around. So for the most part, I will tell you, for the most part, I prefer to be alone because I don't find that there are too many people that I would like to spend time with. But when I do have people that I'd really like to spend time with, I do like to spend time with them. I have noticed that just having someone to speak to is better than being completely alone. Um, yeah, and it's very, I mean, on this planet, it's very difficult to be completely alone. There's that guy who did the 300 days thingy, right? On an island. But like me, Even if I'm not interacting with anyone I know well, if it's just me calling my driver to go get groceries because I live in a little bit of a remote location and I don't have a car, um, me just having a conversation with him in Spanish is gonna, you know, give me all the social boost I need. So, yeah, if I were to sort of just go by the definition, I'm probably introverted. Yes, for anyone who wants to know what that means, who doesn't quite, have seen the definition, extroversion means you get energy from being around other people. Introversion means you get energy from being alone. And you get drained by being around other people, while an extrovert actually gets drained being alone. Based on that definition, I am probably an introvert.
So when you're alone, you get energized, you feel better. Would you
Well,
say that?
yes, I find that my quality of life is higher. I feel like I'm more conscious. I feel like I'm more focused on things that I want to do. Oh yeah, this is now it's time to cook breakfast. Now it's time to now it's time to listen to this thing that's very helpful. Oh, now I want to study Spanish. Now I want to meditate. Now I'm gonna do my work, etc., etc., etc. Well, if I'm around someone, I get stuck in a conversation, and then you know, the day goes by. That's why I prefer being in the
Yeah.
mountains as opposed to the beach. The beach, oh my God, you go there and you feel like you've been there for an hour. No, 3 hours have gone by. It's because you were in a conversation with someone. Here, there's no one here, so I feel like the day is longer. So I prefer that.
Do you think that comes from some value you have, for example, of I need to get work done, need to be productive, and you feel like when you're speaking to somebody, you're not being that productive, and therefore you feel like you'd rather be alone, like go do some work.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Because I feel like if I make videos or I work, it's gonna change a lot of people's lives. And so for me, the way I view that aspect of my life is I have a duty to others. If I have a duty to others, I have a duty to not waste time doing things that are less important. And in general, I noticed even at 15, so 8 years ago, say this, and it's on the same point. My friend once asked me, what's the most satisfying feeling? And this was at 15. What's the most satisfying feeling for you, Jones? You know what I said? I said using my time wisely. When I know I've done really well one day, I've done everything I set out to do. At sort of after sunset when it's dark and winding down, I feel very satisfied. I feel very satisfied. And so yes, even at 15, that was sort of what I realized, and I've been trying to live that way ever since.
That's really good. It's hard to find people who think the same way.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Our society values, well, what our society values really. It values um, success. It values
Pleasure,
activeness. It values um, being known. It values material things. It values outside appearances. That's what it values. We don't really see much value of or valuing of virtue, of good human characteristics, of honesty, of integrity, of these things, right? Because if that were the case, the people that we'd look up to are, well, not necessarily all the people you have in the media, all these comedians, all these celebrities. We wouldn't be following them. Just like in the past, we would be looking up to people that are similar to Marcus Aurelius, but people that are similar to Seneca, people that are similar to, who else can I mention? Well, even people like Martin Luther King, for example. Muhammad Ali is a good example as well. He was quite a virtuous character. Um, certain people related to certain religions. Especially in Asia, they look up to many monks who, aren't rooted in belief systems, but what they've done is practiced a lot, done tons of meditation, basically lived the way I lived for 10 days, but for years, and then all those insights, they share them with the populace, and then people look up to them. Once you start to look up to those kinds of people, you're probably the kind of person who wants to use their time wisely. Why? Because you're industrious. The opposite of sloth, the seven deadly sins, one of them is sloth, just being lazy. The opposite of that is industriousness. And with industriousness comes good use of time. And so the more industrious someone is, the more they value and actually do use their time wisely. But in modern society, there's not, our parents do not tell us, this is sloth, this is industriousness. And they actually point it out, They never do. It's implied, but it's never pointed out. We never look at people and go, oh, that's industriousness. We should be like them. We don't have parents that point this out to us. And therefore, it's never conscious to us. It's maybe subconscious. We know that we need to do stuff to achieve certain things, right? You need to build a house if you want to have a house to live in. You need to feed your dog if you don't want your dog to die. If you want to have a dog, you need to walk your dog, right? It's the same thing here. You need to teach society virtue and value virtue to have these kinds of people in modern society. And that's why I'm excited about the younger generation that is sort of watching my channel and even your channel. Because these people are gonna not look up to Kanye West or I don't know anyone.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, the comedians, the celebrities. No, they're gonna go back to basics. They're gonna look up to Marcus Aurelius, who, despite being the most prone to pride and hubris, because he was the most powerful man on the entire planet at that point, he was as selfless as they came. He was a saint. And once you realize that it is possible as a human being to be like that, then you realize, oh, anyone I've been looking up to, no, this is not the way I'm supposed to be. This is not the way we're supposed to be. That is what to strive for. That is better. That leads to better outcomes. That resonates more with my heart. I think we should be like that. That's why I tell people to read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, because they suddenly change. They go, I
I
can,
just I just read that book, yeah.
and you realize exactly what I'm talking about. You've never had a father figure that you can truly respect. You've never actually seen a man that you can truly respect. And that's why I'm so strict with my circle, for example. Because my reference point is Marcus Aurelius. Am I saying that I'm even close to that man? No. No. But am I saying that that is what my ideal would be? Maybe even beyond that. If one can find fault in Marcus Aurelius, yes. That would be my ideal, and that's what I would strive for, and that's what I would look for in other people in my life. And that's why I say, and that I'll add this before that's why I say that the most important thing in a woman is virtue. Because once you realize that, oh, human beings, this is how a human being can really be, this is how a woman can really be. That's how a woman can really be. You can find women with that kind of heart. So I don't really say a virtuous woman, I say a woman with a good heart usually. Because if I really think about what kind of family do I want to have, what kind of relationship do I want to have, that's what I want to have. And like I say, thus far I haven't found anyone like that. But I know what I'm looking for, I'll tell you that. And I think if you read that book, it becomes easy to know what to look for.
Yes, there's a quote in the book Marcus Aurelius. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but it goes something like, when a donkey dies and when I die, we will both be the exact same thing. we will be observed by the ground. Animals will eat us, and nobody will ever be able to distinguish between me, a human, and a donkey. And it goes hand in hand with that concept of meditating and abstracting from the self and the book Power of Now. And that's the way I found, in order to be virtuous, I must detach from this identity I've created of this person I am, because, and also the desires that I have, because if I found myself lying or doing bad habits. Why am I doing those things? It's to escape from something or to achieve a certain desire. I'm lying because I believe if I say the truth, I will not achieve it. If I just detach from all of that, I see things as they truly are, which is I am a part of this world. I will die and be a part of it, just like a donkey is. We are both, in a way, the same thing, because in a few years we are both going to be the same. By me thinking this way, it allowed me to stop doing the bad habits and stop lying, be more virtuous.
Yeah, and this he usually always says that if I zoom out and I look at the Earth from space, like just metaphorically, he's doing a thought experiment here. I don't. This is not an exact quote, but he says that you know all the people in all eras had the same problems, the same thoughts, the same emotions, the same desires, the same aversions, and how quickly they all return to the Earth. Um, so it's all just like it's all a speck in time, and soon will be underground. And there's nothing pessimistic about that. That actually makes it actually puts you in the present moment more, and it removes yourself from the present moment. And again, the self is just a construct. And that I'm not saying just for intellectual curiosity. That is actually the way it is. It's experientially you're experientially able to know, truly know that there is actually no self in there. And again, it's from the self that all these like one thing I actually realized. I don't know if it was on the retreat or not, but this whole actually it was in the airport when I was going back from the retreat. This whole managing of everything, all of this. I want to buy this. I want to have that. I'm thinking about going this to this country. I want this kind of woman. I need to do this, I need to do that. Anything that's good for you, anything that's bad for you, anything of that sort that you have in your mind, that is the self. That is the self. That thing that you're doing everything for, that is the self. It's exactly what you're feeling right now. That's what it is. And so removing it doesn't make you someone stupid who's gonna do bad things, clearly. It's just gonna give you freedom. And it's gonna give you understanding of what's actually going on. Which means if suddenly the dog eats all your food, you cook a nice steak, you have it on your table, you go inside because you forgot to salt it, you're gonna put salt on it. Suddenly your dog has eaten up the steak. That's my steak that I just cooked and I was gonna eat it. No, there's no self there. Steak doesn't belong to anyone really. What happens? Oh, I need to eat. I'm hungry. Okay, dog ate. Let me go cook another steak. That's what happens. It's the same thing. For example, if you lose your phone, clearly what your objective is to either find it or to just deal with the situation so that you can, you either buy a new phone or, you report it to the police or you ask around or you make someone call your number so that, no, your phone will probably be in airplane mode, so you can't do that. But, oh my God. Let me see here. Yes, so you're trying to deal with you having lost your phone. Now let me ask you a question. All this emotion related to you having lost your phone, is that going to help you? No? It won't. It won't do anything for you. All you need is to deal with the situation. Whether you see the way it would be if you didn't have a self is, again, you wouldn't become stupid. What would happen is that if someone loses their phone or you lose your phone, it's the exact same thing to you. Someone loses their phone, okay, they lost their phone. I'm not too concerned. It's a friend, will help them, right? Oh, I lost my phone. Okay, I lost my phone. Let me deal with the situation. But there's no mind, there's no me, because there's no self there to begin with, right? So that's one way that meditation gives you freedom from suffering by making you realize, oh, there's not actually a solid person in here. And if someone wants to sort of begin looking into that, find yourself. Where are you? Seriously, like you have access. It's just like a chessboard. You can see the position. It's the same thing here. Everything is visible to you. Right here in this moment, everything is visible to you. You as yourself. Where are you? I'm trying to feel my head right now. Not with my hands, but I'm trying to put my consciousness there. I can feel my eyes, I can feel my whole head, right? But I can't find me. I'm not there. I might be somewhere else, but I haven't found it yet. That I can tell you. So if you really scan your head, you won't find anyone behind your eyes. You'll just find the head. Okay, so what are you? Well, not your head, clearly, because there's nothing in there. There's just sensations. Maybe I'm in my shoulders. I don't feel myself being in my shoulders. Am I in the heart? No, I just feel a heart that's beating. Am I in my legs? No, I can't be in my legs. Right? Because I would remain even if I lost my legs. God forbid. So I can't be in my legs, right? How much would I need to lose? I don't know. So no, that's just an interesting thought experiment. And if you actually sit an hour every day and you do that experiment of really concentrating and trying to find where the self is in the body, you might get some great results.
What do you mean by some great results? Because it seems to me that it's just a bit of overthinking and you're not gonna find an answer. You're just, oh, who am I? And you're just there for hours, like trying to answer the question, and you never get to a defined answer. And
Well, that's a
what do
skill.
you think?
That's a skill issue because, and it requires some instruction. Clearly, you're not supposed to think about it. You're supposed to experience. So I can tell you to feel your feet right now. Again, why would I do that? Well, if someone's overthinking, for example, it's good to bring them to their feet because if they're focused on their feet, they won't really think. It's like bringing your attention to the breath. So it has the same purpose. But if I bring your attention to the feet, you are objectively feeling the sensations in your feet. You're not thinking about them. You're feeling them. When you drink water or eat a steak, you're not thinking. You're experiencing sensations that you are interpreting, but you're not thinking them, right? So if you then do the same thing with your body, you're objectively observing reality. You're not thinking. You're objectively observing reality because we all assume that ourselves would be found in our bodies, right? In the body, I would find myself. Where else would I be? So, clearly that is where to look. And so there must be somewhere inside the body where you can find yourself. Somehow. Okay, so then you scan your body. That's the whole thing you do at the retreat, by the way. Not because of what I just said of doing no self. You're actually trying to observe impermanence. You're observing impermanence and all the sensations in your body. But now I'm bringing your attention to more of the no self part. Both are real. One feeds into the other, by the way. Because if everything in the body is impermanent, then there can be no permanent self, because a self needs to be permanent to exist. Otherwise, it's not a self, because its subject is change. And maybe that's the whole point. But so then you observe your sensations objectively, your hands, your feet, your head. And maybe, and what I'm saying is, maybe you can find a self, or maybe you don't. You'll have to investigate. And what you're investigating, again, isn't related to any thought. It's related to the direct experience of the sensations in your body themselves. That's it. And so what does that do? That also improves your concentration, clearly, because if you're sitting there for an hour only investigating sensations in your body, it's going to have a profound effect on your mind.
Concentration is definitely the key in order to feel good about ourselves. In the sense of if you find yourself trying to balance school, which let's say you don't like school, but you're balancing for your family, you're balancing school, you're trying to do business, you're trying to have a social life, trying to do this, that, you will literally find you losing yourself. That's what I found, and it's all a lack of focus in this scenario. Now, most people they promote moderation. They promote to have a balanced life, but clearly, in order to have good health, for example, you have to cut out artificial light. And in today's society, if a normal person looks at that, they're gonna think this is extreme, this is too much. So let me ask you, do you think moderation is an acceptable way by society of slowly dying in a way?
So, this, I think you need systems math category. I can't remember what it's called. Is it systems theory? I think it's systems theory. So, systems theory describes that sometimes you have different situations, you have different systems. And with these systems, you can imagine a situation where the less the better. Smoking is one of these things. You completely eliminate smoking, that is the best. The more you smoke, the worse it is, for example. Then there are things that, the more you do them, the better. So the more you slow down your breath, the better. Not to the point, as long as you're not feeling like you're suffocating, clearly. Just a tiny bit, though. Just a tiny bit. That's Buteyko breathing for you. Actually, that wasn't the best example. In the breathing example, there's gonna be an optimal. This is a system actually where there's an optimal amount of breathing in terms of the amount of air you take in per minute. Too much would be bad. Too little would be bad. There's an optimal amount, and this can change. In this system, this amount can change. So this is not a system where the point is just in one place. No, it changes. Then there are systems again where the more the better. The more the better would be concentration. Outside of sleep, of course. But the more conscious, the more mindful you are, the better. At no point is there an excess of mindfulness that is going to give you negative results. So in this system, the more the better. So you can see how you can actually map out the mathematics of certain things that are important to us. So then, with nutrition, we know that, our food is good. Say a steak that's healthy. Well, clearly, that doesn't mean that if I ate 10 steaks, I'm going to get more of a result. No, I'm probably going to kill myself if I ate 10 steaks. Or I'm going to get severe issues, need to go to the hospital. So then in that system, there's a finite amount, again, which changes. That's the same system as the breathing. There are systems, why am I saying all this? There are systems where moderation is actually the most optimal thing. There are other systems where complete elimination is the most optimal thing. EMF is one of these things. There are other systems where you want the maximum amount. Mindfulness, for example. You want the maximum amount. Right? So, when you say, what should society prioritize? The society should prioritize what is the most optimal in each system we look at. So if it is nutrition, and we know that any amount of Non-local. So let's say pineapple in Sweden, non-local food. Any amount of that is bad. And in this system, mathematically speaking, zero is the most optimal. Then moderation is not optimal. Zero is the most optimal. For emotional comfort, because you crave toward pineapple, or crave to pineapple, to eat pineapple. eh, Just because you crave it doesn't mean that moderation is justified or that it's going to be superior. No, the best is zero, right? Now, in terms of human life, of course, we have the internal state, which means that if you really, 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 really think that this pineapple is going to make you a superhuman, if you have one piece every day, what do I know? Maybe the placebo is insanely strong. And so with placebo, you get these issues. But if we remove placebo for the moment, zero will be the most optimal on average. Well, not on average for everyone, but on average, you'll have to average it if you have placebo that you're counting in here. When something is, well, the more of it you get, the better. Oh, I have an example that is less abstract than mindfulness. Being outside. There's no amount of being indoors that is more optimal than being outdoors, all factors considered. Like, we're not talking about you getting burnt in the sun. Like, if you need shade, you get in the shade. If you need to cool yourself down, you get into a body of water. We're just talking in terms of the light you get. At no point is it better to be indoors, which means that the absolute max amount of daylight that you can get is always the most optimal. So in this system, max is the best, which means that no amount of moderation is good. Now, this is just looking at that factor itself. Now, if you look at a human life, maybe you have a lot of mosquitoes outside, and the only way for you to meditate is to do it indoors. And so, 1 hour after sunrise, you meditate for an hour indoors. Now, you're missing out on morning light, right? But you're getting meditation. And maybe that has a more positive effect on you than having been outside that hour. And then at this point, it's difficult for me to help someone. What I say is you have to experiment and see what happens. So, your baseline should always be to get the best outcome. And usually, when you look at a system, you'll have to model what the system is and then assume that where the ideal is, whether it's to have zero or to have the most amount or to have a certain amount, you have to assume that it would be the most optimal to have that as a goal, and then you work around that based on experience, because you can make that your goal, but maybe if you notice that I can take it down a little bit from max to maybe an hour less in terms of daylight hours. But if I add the meditation, I become overall healthier and calmer, and I get a more fulfilling life. Well, then now you're blending two systems in together and you're getting something more optimal. So that's the way I would see it. Not so the modern to really answer your question, the modern way of seeing moderation, of not being too hard on yourself, I throw that in the bin. There's a reason why Japan and Germany are the best at what they do. We all know what their mentality is. Perfection. Okay? You should strive toward what's best. Always. No moderation just for emotional comfort. No, strive toward what is best, because that is what you truly look up to in others. You watch any movie, you read any story. Do you resonate with a character that wants moderation? Hell no, no one does. No one does. You always resonate with this person who goes beyond what the average human being can do. And that is what you want for yourself as well. And so that's the only thing to strive for. Why? Because that is what's in your heart. Otherwise, you wouldn't resonate with all these things. Right?
That's very well said. It just opened up my mind a lot to a new perspective. Because I was in this all in or all out mindset, and with this analogy of the systems, that goes out the way. It depends on the circumstances, it depends on the goal you have. That's it.
So so what I was saying is This moderation for the sake of moderation, because I don't want to aim for greatness, that's bad. That we throw out. No. Be a perfectionist. Pursue the best. And if you're suffering because of that, you're not doing your best. You have to deal with the suffering as well until that's removed. And then you perform amazingly, effortlessly. And you know what that is called? It's called mastery. Performing really well, effortlessly. That's why it looks so beautiful to see Messi running on the field. It looks effortless and it's masterfully done, right? And so now, again, as I was saying, as you were saying, this entire systems thing, all the systems, so whether it's my meditation, all this health stuff that I teach in the community, all that blends together in a way where what's optimal isn't necessarily what's ideal in each one in your situation, which is why I say that you have to experiment with everything to find what point is the most optimal. Where do I sacrifice? Where do I put in more points to get the most optimal effect? That's what I'd say. It's never about moderation. It's about system, theory, management. It's about mathematics. And the way you reach that is by day in and day out doing things correctly, observing, monitoring, and then making changes, observing how that goes. And if it goes better, if you suddenly say you work 8 hours a day, say you, instead of working 8 hours a day, now you work 6 hours a day, you get a little bit less done, but you use those hours for meditation, and that has a massive effect on you, and even makes your 6 hours more productive. Well, maybe now you thought that, working 8 hours is the max I can do and it's the best for me, right? Because I need to manage other things. No, actually, I'll go 2 hours less, I'll put them into meditation, and now it enhances the 6 hours to the point where it's like I work 10 hours. So all the systems interact in such a way where you need to experiment and see what leads to the overall best outcome.
That's really good. Really good. Now, in your this also involves a bit of like not being an extreme, but in your meditation retreat, you ended up going back to a vegan diet, right? Because
Huh?
of you
Well,
ended up
sort of, yeah.
eating,
Vegetarian, I would say.
yeah,
So I was allowed
vegetarian, right?
dairy.
Yes, so in the past, when it was the last time you had some oats, for example.
Um, January 2020.
Okay. And so, in this meditation retreat, you ended up having it again, right?
Uh-huh. Every morning.
So how did you feel about it?
Well, I'll tell you this. I handle grains easily, and I think most people handle grains easily. What got me was the legumes. And that's why everyone was farting. And then only the 2 last days I got some real bloating, like painful bloating. Outside of that, for the most part, after my microbiome adjusted, and not just microbiome actually, whenever I have a flight, I get constipated. Or it throws me off in such a way where I don't have normal bowel movements for 2 to 3 days. Usually 2 or 3 days. Yeah, 2 or 3 days. Once that period was over, I was having a bowel movement every morning with all this very new food that I was having. For anyone who sort of wants to get an overview of what I was eating, they always had oats, right? Just cooked oats. They'd put cacao in them, cacao, banana, stuff like that. Put that in the bowl. That was sort of the main, you could say, bulk of the breakfast. Then I'd put cocoa flakes in there because I wanted more fat. Also, cocoa boosts the metabolism. I wanted sort of good metabolism. Then I'd put in some chia seeds because they're very gelatinous when because they put them in water, and I thought maybe that would help me have bowel movement, so I just put a little bit in there. Regardless, I mean, if it's just if it's seeds, they just go through you, so since it won't really make any difference, except for the sort of gelling of the water that I wanted. Then I was probably the only one doing this. They had butter, and I recognized the butter brand, so I knew it was good stuff. It wasn't margarine; it was actual butter. So I'd take like a fat chunk of the butter and I'd put it in the oatmeal. Then they'd also have shredded cheese. And the ingredients in Costa Rica, like it's not like the US, it's more like Europe. They're quite nice. So, oh, Jesus, that's animal nutrition. So I put a bunch of cheese. Everyone finished the cheese. Everyone finished the cheese. And they had two like sticks of butter. The butter was always gone every breakfast. So whenever there was cheese, I'd put cheese in there as well. And I'd eat that very happily. No issues. Then they would always have papaya and mango and banana for the most part. I'd take a banana, I'd put some mango and some papaya in the bowl that I just ate from, and I'd have a little bit of fruit after the meal. Then I'd be good. I also did another experiment, which was I consumed coffee. So I was in the mountains and it was quite cold. And, you know, I'd say I wasn't cold adapted. So, because I had been at the coast for 8 months basically. And so I was chilly. So I thought, okay, well, how do I deal? And not only that, I was also a bit sleep deprived because we had to wake up at 4. And so I thought, well, there's no better time than now to see how I react to coffee. So I actually started drinking, okay, half a cup of coffee, a full cup of coffee, and then at the peak I did 2 cups of coffee every morning. Oh no, I was fine. I could meditate. I was completely fine. Then I found a way to get a little bit more sleep, right? After that, and after cold showers, no, then it started to become too much. So then I could even remove the coffee. I didn't need it anymore. But in the beginning, no, was completely fine. Um, I play basically. I just started doing cold showers, and then my metabolism just went up, and the meditation even improved. But so your question is, how did you feel on the grains? Grains were completely fine for me. I didn't even break out. I didn't get any issues at all. No digestive issues, nothing. The only thing that gave me issues was legumes. So Jack Cruz is correct. I mean, I've been saying it. I hadn't done the experiment, but I had been saying that I agree with him that the specifics of your diet does not matter in terms of as long as it's whole foods and you're getting enough DHA and you're sort of eating locally and seasonally, and you have really really good redox. Not saying that I have the greatest redox in the world based on my past, but what I can say is on the retreat. I hope I have good redox. We'll see. But on the retreat, I can say that I drastically changed my diet and I felt completely fine. Which means that I again ate locally and seasonally. I became a fully vegetarian. I didn't feel any large difference in terms of my health. That is a sign of health. That is a sign of being able to adapt. That is a sign of resilience. That is a sign of having a strong digestive tract that's has a robust intestinal lining that isn't prone to leaky gut. That is a sign of good digestion. That is a sign of good metabolic flexibility because the fat went down, the carbs went up, and the protein was very low. And that is also a sign of mitochondria that work really well because they weren't getting the fuel I normally give them, which is, meat and seafood. They were getting something that's way less electron dense. And whatever I was throwing at them, they were still using that fuel perfectly. They were turning all that into electrons and protons and using it really well. While if you're sick, if you stray away from your carnivore diet, you bet you're gonna feel like you just got, hit by a sledgehammer, especially in the morning. So that was my experience was very interesting because I was in a place where I could finally see if I can eat all that food and not react. And I did not react, except for the legumes. But again, they're legumes. They make
Yeah.
everyone fart, not just me.
Was the food all local? Like the fruit you had there, was
Yeah,
it local?
If you're in Costa Rica, all the fruit's gonna be local. I mean,
Okay.
because again, and they're since it's also the fact that they're volunteering. Like this entire retreat is free, so that's out of their own pockets and past donations that they're doing the retreat, right? Because of that, what's going to be the cheapest fruit in Costa Rica? Clearly not the imported stuff. Clearly the stuff that comes from Costa Rica. I mean, it's the one of the fruit hubs in the world. We have their fruit in Sweden, for God's sake. So yes, it was. It was. I am very sure that it was local. And if it wasn't, that would surprise me quite a lot. Again, even if it was non-local, it is not something I had control over, really. So, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I'm just asking because if for example you did this experiment in another country, let's say in Sweden, eating the exact same foods, the outcome could have been different.
definitely. No, no, I agree with you. Definitely, I wouldn't eat. No, I mean, in Sweden, I wouldn't eat any bananas they gave me. Clearly, I would
Yeah.
just eat the standard sort of. I guess they would give you vegetarian food, so rice and vegetables. I would be eating that. If they give me oats, I would eat oats. Oats grow in Sweden. We have tons of oats. I would be completely fine with that. Potatoes, sure, I'd do potatoes. I have no issues with that. I would be doing all of that, and if it was winter and even summer, to be honest with you, I would just spam the showers. I even did that at the retreat in Costa Rica. Like we were in the mountains, the water was cold in the morning. To cold showers, great hack. Great hack, because any kind of, and I guess some people would say, "Oh, you're cheating." But if I do cold anything, I can basically digest anything. So yeah, it definitely gave me a boost.
It's the systems which you mentioned. You know, the food system went a bit down. Maybe it wasn't the most optimal, but you boosted the cold system and he balanced it out.
Yeah, and that's a system where the more the better, unless you die or you lose function in your body.
Would you say that the number one factor to eat local and seasonal is the deuterium levels, or is there more to it?
I'd say probably the biggest one is deuterium, but you have to also realize that we know through quantum physics that electrons store information. Like, I don't know if you've heard about spooky action at a distance, but if two electrons have been interrelated and you do stuff to one electron, you find that the other electron that's very far away will still react. And that's why I think that if something happens to me or something happens to my mother can suddenly feel it, or I can suddenly feel it. Or if I have a dream about my mother has a dream about me. That has happened to me several times. Why? Because I was inside of her and our quantum information is intermingled, right? So then you realize that the electrons in your body and the electrons in your mitochondria are coupled to the information in your environment, the magnetic field, because magnetic fields accelerate particles. They're going to accelerate everything in your body, and electrons react with light. Light only interacts with electrons, and you're filled with electrons because you're mostly water, and also, chemistry. You're filled with electrons clearly because you're mass. Mass has electrons, and so everything in the environment is programming you, and also programming other organisms in your environment. I'm getting the same light as the flowers over there, exact same information. And so when they turn into fruit, and I eat that fruit, there's congruence in the quantum information in both. Okay? Even the bacteria, the information the bacteria get, you the bacteria are very reactive to light. They emit a lot of light and they're very reactive to light. That's why you can very easily mess up your microbiome in artificial light. Why? Because there's a purging of bacteria. There's a purging of bacteria, and there's an entire renewal process of the microbiome each night, as far as I understand. Because you remove the light, it becomes dark where your gut is, and certain processes begin, and certain processes stop. If you're shirtless in artificial light, the bacteria will think it's daytime, and that's how you can get dysbiosis. Why do you get the overgrowth? Too much light. Too much light. You make it dark? No. Works again. The bacteria themselves have a circadian rhythm, and they follow the circadian rhythm of the intestines. So, your body responds to light, right? Well, if you now eat a banana from Ecuador and you are in Portugal, Germany, Sweden, wherever, Russia, the information is not the same. Information in the banana from Ecuador has been programmed by a magnetic field, a sun, water that's completely different. Deuterium is the water story. Then you've got the magnetism. The magnetic field also programs, what do we say, subatomic particles. And then the light also programs subatomic particles. And so the way the electrons jump in your mitochondria is dependent on the light in your environment, for example. And so if you introduce electrons that have not been programmed by the same light as what's in your environment, their sort of frequency will be wrong, so that it causes mitochondrial dysfunction, at least in theory. Can I tell you that this is 100% correct? No, I can't. I've never seen a goddamn electron jump in a mitochondria. But as far as I understand, based on my study of quantum biology, this is the way it occurs. And even if what I just stated is somehow wrong, which I'm open to, I'm always open to us advancing. I think what I just said will be expanded upon quite a lot in 100 years, a huge amount. What I do notice, and what we do notice, is that when people eat seasonally and locally, they get better health outcomes, while when they eat non-locally, they get worse. So whether this is an adequate explanation or not, it works. That I can say.
The points that you mentioned a few minutes ago of you having the same dream as your mother, or certain people being able to have imagine I am thinking of a song, and then the person on my side starts singing that song. Would you say it's related to that?
All the time here, all the time here. Whenever I'm thinking of something, someone close to me suddenly says it. And I say, I was just thinking about that. And it's no longer weird to me. People think, oh, this can't be explained. No, there's definitely a mechanism. The mechanism is that I think, as far as I understand, based on sort of the work of some Russian scientists, and also sort of people in the quantum biology space. Dr. Sarah Pugh, having her on the podcast would be really good, by the way. God bless you, Sarah. I love you. She she and Dan Winter, they talk about how we have the known electromagnetic spectrum, but then we have other waves. I believe they're called scalar waves, for example, which can travel longer, and we don't have any way of detecting them outside of maybe in Russia. And those can be produced by the brain. So whether you like it or not, you are picking up stuff from other people. And this is the non-electromagnetic. It's electromagnetic, but it's not stuff that we have science for right now. So let's put that aside for now. The magnetic field of the heart goes out 20 feet. I don't know how much 20 feet is exactly, but probably a bit more than 6 meters, if I'm not mistaken. So that's quite a lot. Someone sitting over there, 5 meters, 4 meters, 5 meters away from you. You're both in each other's heart fields. Same thing with the magnetic field of the brain. You've also got a field being created from there, which you can also measure. Right? You can see I believe you can see all this with an MRI. Maybe not MRI, but something. There's some device where you can see this, where you're measuring the biomagnetic field of the body. And this is standard medical science. This is not something wooey. And so if we pick up information from electromagnetic fields, which we definitely do, then we can pick up this information from each other. We also emit light. We emit biophotons. And one thing Jack Kruse always says is part of the interaction between one human and the other is happening via the light that both are emitting. I'm emitting light to you, you're emitting light to me. Not when we're sitting on the podcast. I think there's other kinds of communication going on, even though I can only see on the screen. But if we're sitting next to each other, then I believe this light is giving off information to you, and you suddenly, just by something coming up in your mind, that maybe I can detect that, or maybe that thing coming up in your mind is you detecting something that came from me, right? It's just like if someone wants an example here, although it's very, just to ground this a little bit, if this is too hooey for someone, just like in the morning, there's more blue than at sunset, blue light, and blue light wakes you up, at sunrise, and then at sunset you have more red light, less blue, creates more melatonin. Doesn't give you large cortisol spikes. Tells you that that is the time of day. Again, so these things set your circadian rhythm. They tell you what time of day it is. Just like light can give you that kind of information, the biophotons that are emitted from a body can give your body other forms of information. And that's why sometimes you feel like someone's energy is great or someone's energy is bad. If you have someone who's depressed, what do you think their heart is emitting? What kind of magnetic field is it emitting? What kind of shape does it have? Someone has great energy and is very peaceful and is calm and all that. What do you think? What kind of magnetic field is their heart emitting? Probably one that's very pleasant to be in. Probably a big one that's sort of energizing your body as opposed to stealing energy from it.
Yes, that explains why, a certain person enters a room and you can feel that charismatic energy, even though they didn't speak. But if you see somebody that is sad about something, you can just feel it in some way, right?
You can see it in the eyes, you can see it in the face, but you're also feeling it in the heart because you can feel it and you can look at it into their eyes and you can see it and you can feel it in their heart.
I think I hope I'm not correlating things wrong, but I think Carl Jung talks about the collective subconscious, and I think it can correlate to this, to what you just explained.
Probably. I think us humans create some kind of very large electromagnetic field. Now, then we would have to prove that we have long range influence. What's interesting, I'll tell you this. I can't remember exactly where I read this, but I heard the Sami people, so the people in the north of Scandinavia, say that prior to all the electromagnetic infrastructure, they could communicate telepathically by a long distance. Like one tribesperson would sort of meditate, the other person would, and they could communicate by, just long distance. Kilometers, many, many kilometers, like half the country away. But they could. And they said when they introduced the cell towers, couldn't anymore. So if, I'm not saying this is true, but I'm saying if this
Yeah.
is true, and we have all these humans on the planet, and if all their minds are emitting tons of, or their bodies are emitting tons of waves that are very long range. So again, with the magnetic field of the heart, that's 20 feet out, sure, 6 meters, something like that. Okay, that's not going to create something like a big global field. But if you have super long range waves that we emit, that we can't detect it, or we actually can in Russia, who knows? Well, then the collective consciousness is grounded in physics. And I have to say that any kind of phenomenon, this is why, you know, I discarded many health practitioners and I'm currently only looking at quantum biology. And people say that they put me in the category of being in the primal space. I have absolutely nothing to do with that. I have absolutely nothing to do with meat or carnivore or this and that. I'm interested in physics. Why? Because the laws of physics have to govern the universe, which means that all of biology, your entire body has to adhere to the laws of physics. Okay? And so when the most fundamental science is also physics, which means that when you discover something like the kinetic isotope effect in deuterium, again, deuterium being bigger than hydrogen and causing problems, that is an absolute fact. It's an absolute fact that deuterium behaves differently in the human body as opposed to hydrogen. There's no way of arguing with that. And if you find mechanisms there, physical mechanisms, there you go. While, people in the primal space, yeah, that's a level that you graduate from.
Very interesting, yeah. And I actually watched your first podcast with Dr. Jack Cruz. It was very funny because he was constantly reinforcing this message of how we have been lied about how food is so important, food gurus and essentially biochemistry. And it was from you that I learned about the space of biophysics. I'm really thankful for that, first of all. And I believe that more and more people are going to start waking up to this. And we're going to start seeing on social media people doing this transaction, talking about how important light is. No, people are going to care less about calories and they're really going to focus on light and things more in this realm. And the tropics, going to the tropics, going near to the equator is going to become something very popular. Now, since you have lived there, what has been your experience there and the raw reality of living there, like a day to day? Could you give us some of that?
First, I have two things to say, just to reply to what you said. The first thing I would say about nutrition is it's just as important as it is. What Dr. Jack Cruz says doesn't undermine the fact that there are people who switch from, bad diet to carnivore and then they get a remission of their autoimmune symptoms, autoimmune diseases. He's not denying that. He's not taking away the importance of that, or not. Sorry, he's not taking away the reality of the fact that that happens. That happens. What I understand him, the way I've understood it is, even though nutrition can do that, it's by far not the most important thing in terms of health. There are things that are way more important than that, even though nutrition can have that effect and has that effect. Whatever results you've gotten from nutrition, they're not on the same level as the stuff we speak about in quantum biology, light, water, magnetism. Now, I'm going to link this into something. Your diet does not matter at all in terms of your health. It's not going to fix the issue if you live in a place where the magnetic field is weak. Okay? So, this entire latitude thing has to be reworked, and Jack Cruz has come out in recent podcasts and he started saying that, there are some places at higher latitudes that are actually that you could actually go to. Why? Because this issue of the weakening of the Earth's magnetic field is really, really big, which means that the lower your latitude, it's not necessarily a good thing. You could be at the equator in Brazil, you're still gonna run into severe issues because the magnetic field there is like 25,000 nanoteslas. You're at the South Atlantic magnetic anomaly. You'd be there. And so, northern Japan, which in terms of latitude is lower than Stockholm, but sort of has the same weather as Stockholm, is far better because the field strength there is, I think, beyond 50,000 nanoteslas, or around 50,000 nanoteslas. The highest is some point in the South Pole where it's 67,000 nanoteslas. The North Pole is currently sort of going closer to Siberia, and Siberia is now at 61,000 nanoteslas. Which means that not only do you have to think about latitude, you also have to think of the magnetic field. Okay? So, because again, Jax always says light, water, magnetism, which means that you have to take all of those into consideration when you're choosing a place, not just sun, which is going to be dictated by latitude for the most part. Latitude and altitude. And also location in the world, like if you have many clouds or not, that's going to change the light clearly. It's going to change the amount of UV you can harness throughout the year. In terms of the tropics, there are places you'll have to look at some place that's got a strong magnetic field in the tropics, and you can find that. Indonesia, I think, is good right now. Northern Vietnam is good. Of course, don't be in any big city or in a place where there's a bunch of technology, but you know, just find a place with low EMF, strong magnetic field. The biggest thing to think about here is, in my opinion, heat and humidity and mold and pollution. I shouldn't have said thing. I should have said things. Going from Sweden to the tropics, actually, the past month I've gotten quite a lot of insight. Actually got worse. Actually got worse at the coast in Central America. Why? Because I have lived in Stockholm all my life. I've lived in Sweden all my life. And I've done a lot of cold exposure, and I'm very resilient to the cold. And my mitochondria create lots of heat. So if you put me in a hot environment, I will get more inflammation. I will create more free radicals. Why? Because I can't dissipate heat as well. Because I create more of it based on what my mitochondria have been singing to their whole life. My mitochondria have been singing to the magnetic field and the light of Sweden. That's what they're known. That's what they've been doing. And as you know, in mitophagy, again, what happens? You kill off your worst mitochondria and you keep the best ones. The best ones are gonna be the ones that work the best in the environment that you're in. So if I do that for 22 years, obviously I'm gonna have very highly adapted mitochondria to Sweden. And so, yes, maybe if I continue being at the coast for several years, I'll get better. But I will get worse first. Why? Because I did get worse first. Definitely. So would I probably have done better moving to some kind of rural place in Europe? Maybe. Magnetic field there is stronger than here, 100%. Based on the 2025 World Magnetic Map. World Magnetic Model, I believe it's called. Okay. So is there a solution to this? Yes. Oh, well, before I go into the solution, which also let's talk about the other thing. I know quite a few people here. I have many friends down here. And I can't count the amount of times people have needed to move out of their homes because the homes mold. The humidity here is so high sometimes that stuff molds. You have to throw clothes away. In Costa Rica, I had to throw my hat away because it molded. Could see mold on it. Your clothes mold, your books might mold, you get, general mold in the houses, and then you need to move out. And that's especially at the coast, and that's especially because in Central America, let's just say they don't build like a German would, they don't build like a Japanese person would, they build like someone who's been in, how do I say? And I don't want to laugh about this because it's not the best thing. It's obviously not. It's obviously something that I hope never happens again. And I think people in Honduras, especially right now, are struggling with it. But they've lived in a place with lots of insecurity. And so, of course, when you have lots of insecurity, you don't have that much development. And when you don't have much development, you don't have very good infrastructure. And when you don't have a lot of infrastructure, you won't build houses that don't mold in a place where you need to think about that kind of stuff. Right? So not only do you have high risk of mold here, you also have buildings that or homes that aren't built in a way where they have put that into consideration. So you need to be careful about that. Now, how do you fix this? How do you fix this? Airflow, finding sort of something maybe built out of stone, like on the Portuguese countryside, you've got tons of stone houses. Those are great in terms of mold. Those are great in terms of EMF as well. The walls are thicker, and also wood is jump conductive, while stone isn't. So if you have electricity, the charge won't jump in the wood. Again, if you look at my interview with Ola Kitsing on my channel, because you might go, what the hell, what do you mean wood conducts electricity? Clearly it doesn't. It doesn't conduct electricity, but it conducts charge, and it will increase your body voltage. Just that's just another thing. That, but also the biggest hack that I've found for anyone coming to the tropics from Europe is, and this I mainly reserve for my community members, but of course I shall tell it on your podcasts because you're a nice human being and I want people to know this, is altitude. It's going to the mountains. Stuff is polluted at the coast. But then when you go to the mountains, where there aren't many people living, suddenly you get clean water. Suddenly you get clean air. Suddenly the temperatures drop, which means you don't need an AC. Again, in my opinion, if you need an AC in some kind of environment, you should not live there. That environment is not for you. It's unnatural for a human being to be there. Because you need it to be cool enough to be able to sleep. If that's the way it is for our biology, then we're supposed to be somewhere where it's cool during the night at least. Okay, so mountains, it's cooler in the morning and in the evening especially, and it's cooler in general. So my mitochondria, they do way better up in the mountains. Again, my altitude would be around 1,000 meters. 1,000 to 1,100. I'd like to be a bit higher. I'd like to be at 1,300 to 1,500. That would actually be, then the water would be cool enough for me to do some nice CT, and then at night it would be cool enough for me to feel really nice. But so the air can't hold as much moisture when it's cooler, meaning the mold risk goes down. It's also a bit less humid here as well. You've also got less insects. There are way more mosquitoes at the coast as opposed to here. There's also way more life. It's way more green. It's way more beautiful. If you're really, and I mean, I don't see much trash here. I saw a bunch of trash on the coast. Now, this depends on the area you pick, clearly. But I would say it's a lot cleaner up here. It's a lot more beautiful as well. And it's far more conducive to health. So basically, think about mold, think about the temperature, because that really affects your mitochondria and how much you can dissipate entropy out of yourself. That's one of the reasons why cold is so good. It gives you something where you can suck the heat, the excessive heat out of your body. And, if you cool something down in physics, you improve the electron flow. That not only goes for your semiconductors, that goes for your sort of electron transport chain as well, which I guess you could see the mitochondria as a form of semiconductor as well, because everything in the body seems to be a semiconductor. Let's see here. That, and then think about the pollution. Think about the cleanliness of the air. Think about the cleanliness of the water. That's why all the health conscious people go to Costa Rica. In Costa Rica, you have the cleanest air and water in the entire region. In the entirety of Latin America, you got the cleanest air and the cleanest water. Now, even in Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, you will find places where the air is clean and the water is clean. If you go to the mountains and you go to some kind of area where there aren't people that are destroying the place and throwing a bunch of trash everywhere, which they like to do here, unfortunately. Again, hopefully this is going to change. But your best bet, now, again, each country has its positives and negatives. El Salvador is the most secure. Costa Rica is a bit less secure. Still pretty secure. But if you prioritize the water and the air and the pure health factors, then Costa Rica is going to be better, for example. Biggest thing I noticed going from Sweden to here, again, definitely going to be the air and definitely the water. Definitely the water. It's an absolute, and also the way the society is built for your convenience in such a way where I can easily go out and walk a dog if I want to. Everything is walkable, while here it's very car dependent. So where I live, thankfully, I have a forest trail. Right now, at least. So those are some things I'd think about when visiting Central America, or the tropics in general. I would say, if you've been to vacation and you feel a lot better, sure. But don't just move here immediately. Try it out for 6 months. If you drastically feel a lot better, sure. Me, definitely fixed some minor stuff I had. Definitely has made me look better. I mean, based on my assessment of myself and also what people tell me in the comments. But from an energy standpoint, I had to move away from the coast. I had to. I was getting more and more fatigued by each passing day. And it was the heat. It was the heat that was the problem. And maybe also the air quality. Could have been that. Probably also the water. Because here in the mountains, the water is natural. Over there, we have to sort of get a company to bring us water from the mountains. And that's going to be in plastic and it's going to be hotter. So, I was ingesting quite a few microplastics, unfortunately. And if anyone thinks that's avoidable, get your butt down here and see if you can avoid it at the coast.
Do you know where you're originally from? Like your ancestors are from a certain region. Do you know
Yes,
that?
yes. I will only tell you the latitude, though. 37th latitude.
Okay, and does that matter more than getting to a high UV place? Like if your ancestors are from this certain area, is that going to be the best area for that person?
I'll tell you this, and then we should probably sort of round off. Your ancestry gives you your baseline. So if you're uncoupled, that tells you do really well in the cold and you can absorb a lot of light. Why? Why did we even go? Why did our skin turn light in the first place? The only reason it did that is to absorb more light. That's the reason why. It's an adaptation to higher latitudes so that we can get enough energy from the environment and not run into any issues. The darker you are, the more you're optimized for an environment with strong sun, getting lots of UV, right? Which means that that's required for health because if you go higher, now you're getting less energy. While a white person, and although I look tan right now, I can tell you if we look at pictures of me when I was younger, or in Sweden during the winter, I'm pale. I'm completely white. I look Caucasian. I look like if just to give you an idea, I look like a Georgian would look, sort of. Like they have dark hair and they have white faces, white skin. That's sort of the way I am. That's sort of the way my mother is as well. And so that, so what was my point? My point was that if you are such a person, you can absorb more energy in your local environment, clearly, because again, if I come from the 37th latitude, there's not as much UV as at the equator. Since I'm lighter, if I go to a higher energy environment, like, Central America, which has like very strong UV, I can still adapt. I know people, I know people, three of them, more specifically. Actually, probably more, but three that are pretty close to me, that are blonde and blue-eyed, who can sunbathe in UVs that you wouldn't even imagine. Like, I'm talking UV 13 sitting outside on the beach all day. And they're tan as hell. Not dark. They still just look like a white person who has vacationed, but they can take in all that UV without any issues. They've adapted. Why? Because what has happened to lighter skinned people is that they lost the melanin on their surface, put it more inside, but if they go that's to absorb more light from the environment, but if they go somewhere where there's more light, they can still utilize that. With darker people, they're optimized for the tropics and they never had the adaptation of being at a place where there's less energy, so they can't be outside of the tropics. They need the strong sun. So basically, we're more flexible, but we're less specialized if we're light. With dark skinned people, they'll do better in the tropics than us because they're coupled. They don't create as much heat. They're gonna have better athletic performance, etc. They're gonna have they're gonna have the strongest charge in their mitochondria in general. Us, we have less charge in our mitochondria, um, but we have more flexibility. That's the trade-off there. So it's not necessarily about ancestry. It's about the best environment because let me tell you this. Say your ancestors are from Iberia, Portugal or Spain, right? From that entire place. Say suddenly the magnetic field there becomes super weak. Now you go over to, I don't know, Georgia or maybe Kyrgyzstan, some other place, or maybe southern, say southern New Zealand. You go to southern New Zealand, where, say, at this point the field is super strong, and the latitude isn't too far away from where you are. Like southern New Zealand is maybe 45, right? Between 40, 45, and you were around maybe 42, 42 down to 35, which is where Gibraltar is, I believe, 35. And you go there and you feel better. Why? Well, because something happened to your ancestral environment, because the earth changes constantly, and you went to a place that's better. Again, look at animals. Animals move around all the time. Birds migrate. Humans migrate as well. That's why we colonized the whole planet, because we were always looking for the best environment. That's where civilizations build their civilizations. They go to the best place. Also, I'll sort of end on this. If you look at, and this is sort of goes back to what I was saying before, where are all the Central American capitals built? Or most of the cities. Let's look at San Salvador. I think it's 600 to 800 meters up. San Jose, Costa Rica. I think it's 1,000 to 1,200 meters. Look at Guatemala. Guatemala City is high up. Mexico City, high up. Cusco, high up. There are other sort of cities in Peru that are also high up. Bolivia, well, Bolivia is mountainous, clearly, but everything is high up. Ecuador, Quito, capital, high up, not at the coast. Ecuador has a coast and build it there. Colombia, Colombia also has a coast. None of their main city, their capital isn't there. Their capital is Bogota. I think it's 2,400 meters up. Then what else do we have? Colombia, we said Peru. Yeah, and so in general, you see a pattern, right? Where they're building capitals in these hot tropical environments. They're building the capitals in the mountains. Why is that? Because your brain works better in the cold. You work better in the cold. It's easier to sleep. Everything's easier. That's more of a environment that's conducive to humans, right? So what I'll tell you is the basic physics of the human body are the same. Cold will always make your semiconductors work better, whether you can create a lot of heat or not. Um, it's just about going to the best place on the planet that still is in line with your biology, not about going to where your ancestors were. Because if something happens to your ancestral homeland just because of what the earth does, I mean clearly you can't stay there. And that's what we've done all throughout history.
Yeah, that's a really good take. Now to end this off then, what's one message that you want to give to the viewer? Let's say that you were to die right now. It's the last thing you can put out to the world. What would you say?
Think of the things that may cause suffering for someone else or for you, and don't repeat them for someone else. And I think if we all live that way, um, we'll create a better planet. Stay virtuous. Stay virtuous. Stay develop yourself and the characteristics that you know are the ones that you truly look up to. Honesty, integrity, industriousness, charity, um, everything that you truly know to be the way we should be. Pursue that. Make sure you facilitate the development and virtue for everyone else as well. And then investigate the nature of reality. See where you end up.
Thank you, Jones. Thank you
Thank you.
for your time.
Thank you.